Hey, how are you doing? Today we're going to talk about multiple offers from the perspective of a buyer and what you can do to stand out. So, in a situation where you know you're competing, I will let you know up front that this is a property where we are not the only person and what we have to do in order to get the house. So, the level of competition is going to be how much you want the house. If you want to win, then I'll tell you how to win. If you're just like, you know what, let's just put something out there, we'll just put something out there. But what I tell all of my clients is when I call you and tell you didn't get the house, are you going to be okay with it? Have you put that offer out there that you feel like is your strongest and the offer that makes you the most comfortable? And if you're like, yes, that's fine, that's exactly where I want to be, then that's the offer we put out. If you're like, I have to have this house, I'll do anything to get this house, then I'll tell you the offer that we have to do to get that. As a buyer, the ways that we can do that, the number one thing I like to do is escalation clauses. Escalation clauses are when we come in at a certain price. Normally it's around the list price in certain markets. In 2021 and going into 2022, we are doing right above list price as that first starting mark. And then you escalate up to where you're comfortable. So escalating in increments of $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 really depends on the price point that you're in. If you're on a $200,000 property, you're not going to be escalating by $10,000 necessarily. If you're on a $700,000 property, you're not going to be escalating by $1,000 increments. So I'll talk to you about all of that depending on what property it is and what we're looking at. And what that means is you are telling the seller you're willing to pay $5,000, let's say, higher than the next highest offer in order to get the house. So if the offer was $550 and that was the highest offer and you're escalating by $5,000, then you're willing to pay $555. The seller then shows us, crossing out all of the confidential information of the other purchaser, that offer. So we know that in fact there was another offer that you were competing against, and that is why you have escalated now to your $555. Let's say the highest you would go was $550, then you wouldn't have gotten that house. So, you have to kind of know exactly where you're going to be. So escalation clauses I like because they protect you. They make you feel comfortable. You can sleep at night knowing you didn't like overpay. I feel like a lot of people are talking about overpaying, but that will be a whole other video we can talk through. But so that's the one way I really like people to use to compete. The other things we can do are offering to pay for the appraisal gap and talking through the home inspection. The appraisal gap, that is the gap between what the appraiser says the home is worth versus what you're paying for the house. So if you are paying $350,000 for the house and the appraiser says it's worth $345,000, going the wrong way, there's $5,000 missing. Well, the seller wants to be guaranteed this house is closing, and they want to be guaranteed the money that you told them they were going to get when you wrote the contract. So that's called the appraisal gap. So in certain markets, in the market in 2021 and going into 2022, we are seeing buyers that are willing to pay the difference. Some are saying we'll pay the difference no matter what it is, and some are defining what that is, whether it's $2,500 or $15,000. So again, it'll depend on the price point of the house, what we're looking at, what you're willing to do, because you still are responsible for closing costs and down payment. So you need to think about your financial situation, talk to your lender and see what you're comfortable with. That is not a financial decision I can make for you, because at the end of the day, it's your money. And if the appraiser says the home is only worth $335,000, then that's $15,000 that you possibly could have agreed to come to the table with. The home inspection, you have the right to waive the home inspection. I'm not going to love that. There are ways we can get around that as well. Home inspectors will come with us to the showings. The home inspector that I work with a lot charges $150 to do that. He will come, he'll walk the house with us. We'll go do the pretty stuff, go do the house, do the flow, make sure it fits you right, while he's going through the crawl space, crawling on the roof, looking at the major mechanicals like the water heater, the HVAC, all the good stuff. And then once our 30 minutes is up at the house, we'll meet back at the car, assuming you love the house. He'll say, okay, this is what I've seen And he'll either say, we need further inspections on the house, or he'll say, you're good to go, this is a great house. And then you know what your comfort level is. And are you willing to waive a home inspection? Do you need to do further inspections? Or is it just not the house for you? So it's a way to kind of put yourself at an ease of mind. It is a cost. So I do like to make sure my clients know about that. You don't want to do it for every house you go see. You want to do it for the houses you feel really, really strongly about, that you're like, I've driven past it, oh, this neighborhood is what I want. I've seen 50 houses, I've lost out on 10 contracts, and like, I gotta get a house. So this is kind of, once in a while I end up doing this. I don't do it very often. You can also waive repair items up to a certain cost. So waive the first $5,000 in home repairs, $7,500, $10,000. We set a price amount, and this does not mean you are coming out of pocket that amount. It means you are telling the seller you're not nickeling and diming them, that you are going to look at that home inspection report, and you are really essentially just looking at those things we just talked about. We were going to look at the showing with the inspector, but you wouldn't have had that showing inspection necessarily. You could have, but most likely you didn't if you're putting this into the contract. So it makes you stand out from the other buyers. You can also do a home inspection for informational purposes only, or an as-is sale. So there's lots of different things we can do with the home inspection, and again, we'll talk about it depending on the house. Certain ways and how you word it, you can void the contract if you don't like what you see. Other ways you can't void it. So that's really important too, because if you think there are things that are going to make you not want a home, I don't want you to be in a situation where you can't void it and you can't get out of it because of the home inspection, when there was in fact something that you knew all along was going to make you nervous if it had come up. So I really need you to be completely honest with me up front about any worries, concerns that you may have just about homes in general. It doesn't have to be about that specific house, but I might be able to say, well, this house is in an area where it's very common to have shrink swell soil. So let's not do XYZ, because we may want to have a structural engineer come out here, because I did see a bunch of cracks in the house. So, it helps me advise you if I know you have certain fears and concerns going into things. And timing, we always want to close when the seller wants to close. So I would say in the last year and a half, all my buyers are closing when the sellers want to close. For a while in 2021, we were given a lot of seller possession, which we're not seeing yet in this market this year. But that is one way. Sorry, my dog is sorry. That's one way we can look really good to the seller, is to let them stay in their house if they need to. Again, not everyone's comfortable with it. It's case by case basis, and we'll talk through it. So that is about standing out in a multiple offer situation. And again, going back to the appraisal gap, one important thing there is, just because there's a list price, what has happened in the last year and a half is that does not mean that's the value of the house. So I think a lot of my clients I've seen think that the sticker price on the house is the actual value. I've seen a lot of listing agents aren't quite sure how to price houses anymore because the market's been a little off. So I will go in and I'll run comps for you, and I can tell you where I think the house will appraise, so you can have a little more confidence if you want to do that appraisal gap, because it might appraise for a lot higher than that list price is already, just because that listing agent didn't price it correctly. So the appraisal gap may not be quite as big as you think it might be. So just making sure that we're having all those conversations as we're going through, and I just don't want you to be concerned about things like that.